later in verse 23, which speaks about Pesach in an orderly service of gathering. How many are still with me?
Amen.
Okay, Chris, if you would please.
No sleeping this
Fill
week.
me up. No sleeping?
No
Good.
sleeping.
Not this week. That was last week.
Yeah.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. Thank you, Chris. Where are we? Okay. Look at verse 21. For in eating, everyone takes his own meal. One is hungry, another is drunk. In other words, this was all about self. The Kehillah didn't eat together. The Kehillah didn't have Chavurah together. The Kehillah didn't wait for each other. One or two individuals brought their own food. They didn't share their food with anybody else. They were eating and drinking, and the other poor souls, thank you, and the other poor souls were on the outside looking in. Everybody's bringing their own food, but not sharing it. Everybody's bringing their own drink, but not sharing it like we do here in Chavurah, which is the correct way to do it.
Amen.
So it's as if, let's say, Nadine brought her stuff, it was only for her children. And she didn't wait for Chavurah to start eating. As soon as the service started, she was out there eating, and then 4 hours later she left. That's heresy. It's wrong. It's selfish. It's controversial, and it needed to be repaired, and it needed to be stopped, and it needed to cease and desist. You follow me?
Amen.
So Rashi, and I'm not saying Nadine does it, I'm just using that as an example. Okay? So when we come together as Israel, notice it's not to eat and drink separately in our own food, gorging ourselves. How can you eat separately if it's a Lord's Supper and you and you what's that thing called? Pan, easy pan pequeña. That ain't eating, honey. That's barely surviving. All right. If you're eating crackers and grape juice on Shabbos, you don't know how rich the Lord of the Shabbat is. He's not the Lord of crackers and grape juice. He is the master of all abundance. For Yeshua said, I have come that you might have life and that you might have it more abundantly, somebody.
Amen.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh.
I have news for you, brothers and sisters. He's not the Elohim of crackers and grape juice. Or animal cookies, for that matter. I mean, what do we limit our Father to? We limit Him to these things. Heretical. Controversial. Could you imagine Chris brings all that beautiful vegetarian food? He goes in a corner, he sits in a corner, he gorges himself with wine and his own dish for 4 hours, and later on he leaves and calls it an Israelite assembly. You wouldn't do that. That's heresy. Would it be controversial? Heck yeah. I'm hungry. How come he's eating for 4 hours? That would be controversial. Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So there was all kind of selfish behavior going on the day of our what? Marah.
Oh, yeah.
On the day of our Marah, our master. Look at verse 21. For in eating, everyone takes his own meal. Everyone is hungry. Everyone is drinking. No one is sharing. We come together in one place to share community. Look at verse 22. What's going on? So far, how much of this has to do with the Lord's Supper?
None.
Zero. Because there's no such thing as the Lord's Supper. Look at verse 22. Another heresy and controversy that has come into the camp to see if you're going to follow the Lord's Supper that our parents followed, or you're going to follow the Shabbat and the Pesach. Look at verse 22. Rashi says, I believe it. I hear about it. There are divisions. There are heresies. And I'm not there. And I haven't seen it. But you know something? I know you guys. I know human nature. I believe it. I believe it. Even though I'm not there. Verse 22. Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
If you catch any adults eating out there, bring them in, please. Rope them and bring them in. I don't want any adults eating, especially with these verses going on. Look at verse 22. What's going on? Don't you have your own houses to eat or drink? Hello? Taking communion the way it's celebrated by the modern church is not eating and drinking. That's pecking. It's nibbling.
If you
Can I hear a good amen?
if he gets that.
It's nibbling. That's not eating and drinking. He's saying, don't you have houses to eat and drink in? In other words, if you're going to go in a corner and you're not going to share your food and you're not going to share your stuff and you're not going to share your provision, you're not experiencing Israelite community. You're manifesting your selfish nature. And he goes, if you want to eat, go home. If you want to drink, go home. This is not the place to eat and drink. This is a place to sacrifice your food and your time and the things that are important to you with your brothers and sisters in Yeshua to build community. Amen. Can I get a witness?
Amen.
If it's eating and drinking you're interested in, stay home.
Exactly.
Look at verse 22. Or do you despise the Israelite congregation of Yahweh? How were they despising the Israelite congregation and bringing shame to those who have nothing? Look in the community. There are brothers and sisters that have no food, and here you are sitting in the corner. He is rebuking their selfish behavior.
Exactly.
He's rebuking their selfish ambition. They're not there to share, to love, to learn, to experience brotherhood and community. They're there just to go in a corner and to provide for themselves. Wilbur, you follow me?
Following.
So he's saying, hey, this is the day of our master. Are you with me? Yvonne, you with me? This is the day of our master. If you're not even getting it right on the day of our master, how are you going to be ready to celebrate the fall feast, the spring feast, and the Moadim? You're not going to be ready.
Exactly.
This has nothing to do at all
Foreshadowing of
with what religion today calls communion. Nothing. So if it's eating and drinking you're interested in on the day of our master, on the day of Marah, then stay home. But if you're going to come to the Israelite congregation, there are those in the Israelite congregation who have nothing. That's why you're there. Sometimes we come to the Israelite congregation not to learn, not to hear a good message, not to grow in Yahweh, but sometimes we come, and we should come, even when we don't feel like coming, to be a blessing to others.
Exactly.
To encourage them.
Exactly.
To help them.
Amen.
To say hello to them. To smile at them. To laugh with them. To give of ours and share it with them.
Amen. Amen.
Can I hear a good amen?
Amen.
Can I get a witness?
Totally agree.
Amen.
Totally agree.
This water's tasting good today.
Yes.
So in other words, we don't come to the day of our master Shabbos, Yom Shabbat, to eat and drink. We come as community and we celebrate as community and we leave as community. Rav Shaul, it's a heresy, it's a controversy what you're doing. Rav Shaul says, what shall I say to you? Look at verse 22. What shall I say? Shall I give Tehillah, praise to you for this? I will not give you Tehillah, verse 23. For I have received from Yahweh what I delivered to you. Now, he's going about Shabbat, and he's going, now let's talk about Passover. You are not ready to hear about Passover or to receive about Passover until you receive the apostolic correction, somebody.
Exactly.
Until you receive, that's what sometimes why my preaching seems to be a little bit rough, a little bit harsh, with a little bit of an edge. Because like Jeremiah, I have been told to pluck up, chapter 1, and to plant. To pluck up and to plant. Oh, they love Rabbi Moshe when he's planting. Shabbat. Tzitzit, celebración por mí, por ti. They love Rabbi Moshe when I'm planting. But when it's time to pull up some of those weeds, like communion and state-mandated celibacy and Sunday worship and other unrighteous custom, too harsh. He's too harsh. He's too frank, too loud, definitely too loud. And then what was the word that came from Yirmiyahu, from Yahweh to Yirmiyahu? Now listen, Jeremiah, sit down. Siéntate. Párate, siéntate. Sit down. Here's the message, right? If you look at their faces, I will require it of you. When you preach and you teach, do not look at their faces. Because their faces will approve or disapprove. You look at my face. It's a warning to you ministers who are called into the ministry.
Oh, wow, that's so...
You spend more time watching people's faces
glad I can't see.
than getting the